Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream of Shadowverse. Today is Friday, June the 4th. And, wow, we're starting later than I thought. I haven't bothered to set my clock forward for daylight savings time, that whole garbage that they do in the United States, so I thought it was an hour, my clock was an hour ahead. Turns out my clock is an hour behind. So, yeah. For the accountability section, I will say I've been playing Left 4 Dead. There really isn't a lot to say about Left 4 Dead. It's kind of a shame, but, yeah. Even in retrospect, it definitely feels like Left 4 Dead is just kind of a Counter-Strike mod and a Source engine game that's missing just a ton of features when you're trying to play it as single player. I am having slightly better experience, I think, by turning up the brightness in single player and just thinking of it as a action game, just trying to move as fast as possible through the different the linear sections, not even really very discrete sections in the levels other than chapters. I didn't realize that Crash Course, after the No Mercy scenario, is written very much like it is a linear storyline, where in the first scenario you escape on a helicopter, and then at the very beginning of the next scenario you're standing next to a crashed helicopter. It does certainly highlight that there are weaknesses in the Source engine by modern standards. Like, if you were going to completely remake Left 4 Dead, you would have each of the scenario locations intermixed. So sometimes you would be in the city environment of No Mercy, and sometimes you would be in the kind of more rural environment of Crash Course. I wouldn't be surprised if the other scenarios take you into several other kinds of environments. There would be a ton more 3D models. There would be collectibles. There would be selectable weapons, and different ammo for different weapons. There are selectable weapons in Left 4 Dead, but it's one special weapon and then handguns. And you can upgrade the handguns to have 2 handguns, and you can
Are you in need of medicine?
you can upgrade the special gun if you find the better version of the special gun, and that's it. I tried to use the hunting sniper rifle, and it failed just completely as far as a choice, because I tried to headshot the witch, which there's an achievement for headshotting the witch, and I was playing on easy, and even at that, unless the headshots are actually not hit them in the jaw, but hit them in the brain and the top of their head, and I missed that way, which would be very hard to get that level of accuracy. Plus the characters don't really react any different if you do headshot somebody.
I want to get it all back.
Let's go ahead and do that.
Ladies and gentlecoats,
I just want to fill the emptiness.
Open wide.
So yeah, I headshotted the witch with what looked to me to be the most powerful weapon you could have, because it takes forever to reload and shoot, and it has a zoom where none of the other guns have any kind of iron sights or zooms of any sort, which you'd also expect that to be in the game. Yeah, there's just a ton of stuff you would expect to be there, even for a 13-year-old game, that is missing. And
You look kinda haunted. No, literally.
Open wide.
you can use the excuse, certainly, to say the reason so many gameplay mechanics and concepts are missing in Left 4 Dead is because it was supposed to be a fast-moving multiplayer game where people are dropping in and dropping out and running through scenarios. But honestly, that comes off as a half excuse, half truth. Also, if you look at what multiplayer games were doing at the time and we're doing now, I'm certainly no expert in multiplayer games, but there is something certainly to be said about the fact that if you are in a level / scenario in a multiplayer game, it tends to be a fairly discreet thing. You just get a random level, you get a random, maybe you get a separate random what am I trying to say?
Kinda haunted. No, literally.
Goal to finish the level.
Popular.
I just want to fill the emptiness.
Open wide.
Let's see.
Oh my. Newly open wide.
Sure, you can have this one.
But yeah, also there's the asymmetric multiplayer element, and I'm not sure if in Left 4 Dead you really can ever play as the bad guys, as the mutant zombies or not. Whether it's one player that plays as the zombies or it's a team of 4 that would play as the mutant zombies in Left 4 Dead 1. That might have been something that was only in Left 4 Dead 2. So I'm going to have to try and play a multiplayer game, and I'll almost certainly fail miserably in that attempt. Either I'll find that nobody is actually playing online at all, or I'll find that the people that are playing online are just perfect players. Is there anything else as far as the accountability section to say? No. It's been slow to get to recording this week. I've had a lot of distractions, had a lot of insomnia. It's not been a particularly productive week. The Amazon Prime Day is happening on June 21st and 22nd, which I mentioned that already, I think, but that's a month earlier, so I'm starting to think about whether I'm gonna try and save some money by spending money, which is about the only way you can save money if you do it well. If you do it poorly, you buy stuff you were never going to buy in the first place. I did have the quality of service turned off on my network, and then after a couple days I had no problems, so I turned it back on. Then I had problems, so I changed the settings. It definitely feels like there's 90% of the possibilities that you could have on a DDWRT router, or at least my router, lead to unoptimized or completely broken. More often than not, it seems like completely broken
You look kinda haunted.
options.
No, literally.
So, yeah. But if I can actually pin this down, I think I've pinned it down to the quality of service being the issue, not the DNS mask being the issue, or the DNS crypt being the issue. Then if I can now slowly try to adjust settings and figure it out, I might be at a snail's crawl actually succeeding at learning the problem and learning the setup, or at least the weirdnesses of that specific model router. And unfortunately, there really isn't a better router to replace it with. And inevitably, I think I'm gonna have to run to the
We're
bathroom.
ready to sail?
So, see if I can finish this one game. The other thing to mention is I went back and checked
I shall paint.
checked Tech Raptor to see if I was missing any stories that Tech Raptor was talking about, what the amount of stories being missed, and the importance of those stories that were being missed. And unfortunately, Destructoid is not working out. Like, it's not a big rage quit. I haven't seen anything that just makes me absolutely hate Destructoid. No pro censorship line in the sand has been drawn like Tech Raptor, but temporarily we'll have to go back to using Tech Raptor as a source of information of news stories. But I am going to this time keep the list of video game news sites open and use that as and just go down the list of different sites, and anything that looks like it's even slightly has a chance of being a replacement for Tech Raptor, I'll try the next one, and then I'll try the next one, and then I'll try the next one. I'm thinking that the newsfeed concept has, on multiple sites, really proven itself to be something that no longer works. This is probably because of places like Facebook, Twitter, even Reddit in its RSS feeds, really only showing you the top 10% or the stories it wants to show you. It's that algorithm stuff. So I am trying to make some changes to my custom Reddit RSS feed, and I'm wondering if I shouldn't, instead of having a custom feed that combines multiple subreddits, instead get the global Reddit subreddit feed. So get one RSS feed specifically for r/gaming, and then like one separate one for r/announcements or r/news, instead of having that all be merged together. See if this works.
Want to play?
Guess we're going to try and keep everything dead. So yeah, for Twitter, that might very well mean that the system I'm using now, where I just have 5 different Twitter feeds open, is the smarter way to go. But alright, well, now I don't feel like I need to go to the bathroom, so I guess we'll stick with it. Meanwhile, let's cover the news. So that means we do have Tech Raptor articles. Uadin Chronicles delayed to reach greater ambitions. Check that story out if you're interested. There is definitely a possibility here that Tech Raptor's pro line in the sand, pro censorship line in the sand, won't outwardly, to the initial outward appearance, actually change the quality or the type of articles Tech Raptor is talking about now, but that really just means that they had already had secret pro censorship, self-censorship rules that they had been following for a while. And that probably is the case. Like,
Let's speed things up.
at a certain point, there was no reason why Tech Raptor should have been talking about more Gamergate or ethics and games journalism article stories, because there haven't been too many stories to be talked about anyways lately in the past couple of years.
Are you in need of medicine?
So yeah, you could have easily, but that there might be reasons why there haven't been any stories like that too.
It looks like I'm up.
As much as the mainstream video game journalism people hate Gamergate, I think they definitely should
Wide?
thank it because it forced the companies to,
Blood loss.
at least at some small level, start watching its employees and making sure they weren't sleeping with game creators who they were writing reviews on.
Yeah, I love this job. Of course I do.
Anyways, moving on, we have a Gamma Sutra article. Activision seemingly sets up a new in-house studio for AAA mobile games. So check that out on Gamma Sutra.
Only one way to find out.
Gamma Sutra I'd also like to replace. So if I can stumble on a
You look kinda haunted.
game
No,
site that has
really.
some insider information, mergers and acquisition info. Although I don't know if I really care about mergers and acquisition info. Like here we have Finnish studio QuickSave Interactive netting 1.3 million to create an HTML5 chat games, which
Can I haunt
That's-
you too?
not really something that feels like it's relevant. TechRaptor says AMD FSR could make console gaming look better. Fidelity FX Super Resolution. Well, see, this looks to me like this is sharp and good looking. This over here looks blurry and bad. Like this character looks way blurrier than these characters. And these streets look blurrier. Maybe this is over sharpened, or maybe this is well, 1440p is a high resolution. Like, but the foreground stuff also looks blurry. Like, ideally, this is always a bad way to present video graphics anyways. You should never draw a line and split it like this, because it would make much more sense to have the exact same image, exact same frame in demo mode, and then show it on the left and right so you can compare apples to apples, not compare somewhat similar but not quite similar things.
What did I want again?
Forgot to play. So yeah. Okay, well, this is an AMD thing, so it more than likely will show up in consoles.
You might make a good son-in-law.
Got me feeling hungry.
Come forth, crimson flame! Let's see how well you handle this. Ow! You're mean!
Of course, then you have this on TechRaptor for Pride Month. I suppose this would be the time to write an article like this, but there was something I would like to complain about as far as a TechRaptor article, and that this is labeled as a brief history. First of all, this article I've scrolled down a lot to is about 5 times longer than any other TechRaptor article I've ever seen. Second of all, I would like to complain about just the selection of depictions. Every one of these characters has kind of a caveat to them, if you know them particularly well, because I don't know how you can call Poison a queer character when the Japanese company went out of their way to not have them be genderqueer. and instead just make her be a biological cis woman.
Is it edible? Only one way to find out.
Like that's an issue certainly. And
Looks like you
I
brought
think
another
there's
smart you popular.
definitely a
You
misuse, I suppose, of the character when you talk about Ellie, labeling her specifically as a queer character. I think they're using queer as a very broad term, certainly. And then there's definitely an over-sexualization that very well might be the case of the game developers for those specific games, but you could definitely have gotten a different picture for Poison. And in a weird way, seems like the one character who is dressed provocatively here has been cropped and zoomed in, whereas these two, that hasn't been the case. So I don't know what really you've got there. But as you scroll down here, you can see that this is going further and further. Is this supposed to be a Lara Croft game? Yeah, this just goes on and on and on. No, this is Fear Effect 2. And then those are Fallout. There is a deeper thought as far as gay relationships in Japanese games and how they were very often censored, or those kinds of games were just totally missing. But yeah, this is a super long article. When I think of Ellie in particular, I don't think of her as a lesbian, and then I guess I'd have to decide whether lesbian equals queer, considering those are different letters in the LGBTQIA listings. But I definitely don't think of her as that. I think of her as a murderer and a horrible character from what I've heard she does in the second game. Or I think of her as the little girl that needed to be protected in the first game. And I don't feel like there's enough connecting source and story to merge those two characters into one person. Certainly. But yeah, clearly this is something that TechRaptor wanted to write about. This is a light example, certainly, of
control and why go?
where SJWs don't really want to talk about video games. Even in this instance, they aren't really going into a lot of variety of games or into a lot of depth about the video games. In fact, they're quite literally boiling down and using video games just to be their token example of queer representation, in this case, in video games, where that's not how almost any character in a video game is depicted. Ellie is not just a flamboyant lesbian that in every scene is like, I'm a lesbian, remember I'm a lesbian, I'm a lesbian. She is, to the best of the writer's ability, a character that they are trying to write and develop as a character. And it is only people who, like SJWs, who live in a world of defining yourself by your gender preference, gender identity, or minority status or oppression status. It's only when you're only looking at the world through that very myopic lens do you even think it would be right to boil down a game to that level. So I'm not in any way returning to TechRaptor or thinking I'm wrong to leave TechRaptor in the long run. I'm just temporarily trying to get news, and I'll have to be better, certainly around the idea of
Open wide.
curating out the garbage.
Why did I want gold again?
Here's a more standard story from TechRaptor. TikTok owner ByteDance acquires a big share in Umi Game. And let's see, when you look at this article, it's barely 6 or 7 sentences and a whole bunch of random pictures. And that's it.
Why did I
that.
want gold again? I want to get it all back.
Gametsu has an article here. This is surprising in its late announcement and in the fact that it's there isn't a considerable more amount of build-up, but it's not really surprising. We've seen that Suda51 has been trying to get his old games to come to PC and Steam, and I have certainly been aching for the point where No More Heroes 1 and ideally No More Heroes 2 would come to Steam too. It's a little surprising that they're going to put both games out at the same time. Like, it really does not make a lot of sense to not stagger that. There's a decent chance that that this won't be the best port ever when you're but it clearly shows that more and more Japanese companies are slowly porting their games over to PC. There is a specific thing to consider in the porting of No More Heroes. One, in that that game was originally very specifically only designed to work with the Wiimote, so there is a level of improvements that had to have happened to add controller support, standard controller support to No More Heroes 1, but they had already done that when they ported it over to the Xbox 360, and I think it came to the 360 or the PlayStation. And so yeah, that's no longer much of a concern. It still may be the best way to play No More Heroes may still be to play it on the Wii originally.
I'm coming for you.
And I'm not gonna lie, I would like to potentially buy No More Heroes on day one and play it, but I doubt at the prices of $20 each that's the best investment. Yeah. Let's see, I've never played No More Heroes 2. And there certainly might be an argument, since all of No More Heroes 1 is just a boss rush game with a lot of side mission things that were fairly repetitive and grindy. A second playthrough, even many years later, of No More Heroes may reveal that it's not quite as interesting of a experience as it was originally. But yeah, I am definitely hyped to the idea of it coming out on Steam. So I'll immediately put this on the fall list. I think within one day of June 9th when it comes out, you will have a you'll have hopefully a lot of outstanding reviews and positive reviews happen. Yeah, these graphics don't look like they've been like remastered really or anything. It would be fairly difficult to remake the whole game since it's a fairly niche game anyways. Yep. Speaking of niche games, the Binding of Isaac creator has a board game called Four Souls based on the Binding of Isaac. It's a card game, board game. And he announced a couple days ago a Kickstarter for a expansion of that card game based on the video game expansion. And let's see.
You are kinda haunted. No, literally. Aren't you popular?
Do that.
Can I haunt you too?
Do that. So yeah, you would think, sorry, I lost my train of thought there. You would think that the Binding of Isaac card game would be a fairly niche audience and it would kind of struggle on a Kickstarter. No, the Kickstarter asked for $100,000 with a lot of stretch goals, and in less than 3 days it's above $3 million. That being said, you probably need a lot more money when you are physically printing cards and making these collector boxes. And it is not a collectible card game, it is a deck builder game in that you already have all the cards they're ever going to make until the next expansion comes out. Alright, we need to be able to do this, then this.
Can I interest you in
You
reasonably
are kinda haunted. No, literally.
And then let's go ahead and play this, I guess.
Then, gentle ghosts.
Cheers and goodbye.
So yeah,
The uncharted desert awaits.
I wouldn't be opposed to owning the Four Souls card game, but you need probably 2 or 3 or 4 people to play the game, and so that means you have to have a friend group that is fairly like-minded as far as the Binding of Isaac demented artsy, the demented art and comedy around it. So I just don't think I could convince 4 people to really play that. This is an interesting comparison for No More Heroes to compare it to Bayonetta. In a lot of style and flair, it is very similar, but the gameplay mechanics are hacking and slashing with a laser sword and figuring out puzzles as far as how to hack and slash with a laser sword, whereas Bayonetta is a lot of close hand combat, so it's slightly different, but I don't think I would particularly consider that a wrong comparison. Now, when we come over here to No More Heroes 2, the graphics are slightly less polygonal for this game, but it's still fairly blocky. He has now a different kind of laser sword, it looks like. And so yeah, I'll put this on the follow list. Now both of these games are rated M for mature too, so yeah. This would be definitely a Honey Pop type situation. Probably not as bad as Honey Pop though. I would say, yeah, it's probably nowhere as bad as Honey Pop, but it is going to be pushing the edges of what many would claim was good taste in its comedy. Oh, I guess it is worth mentioning that Travis Touchdown, the main character, also does wrestling moves on top of the sword slashing. But No More Heroes 2 is definitely just a boss rush game for the most part, with a lot of different crazy bosses, with some small hallways to grind through or repetitive minions to beat up before you get to a boss. But yeah, that's pretty exciting. Now, No More Heroes 3 must be somewhat close to a reveal of the... Yeah, well, No More Heroes 3 must, in my opinion, be getting close to being revealed and launched. And that's why they wanted to rush and bring out the PC game before. I wouldn't be surprised if it's like June 9th, No More Heroes 1 and 2 comes out, and then June 16th, a week later, 7 days later, you have No More Heroes 3 come out. And there very well may have been an announced date, but if there was an announced date, it would have had to have been a very long time ago. And this may just be a case of, since No More Heroes is such a niche game, they may have opted to do very little advertising as far as pushes to catch people's attention. And that might explain a lot of it. Although, almost every game, regardless of how niche it is, gets a ton of push, particularly from a Japanese developer. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article saying Deep Silver says there will be no Saints Row E3 reveal, which, okay. I guess the real question is there a Saints Row 4 in development at all? Because I'm not sure there actually is. Destructoid has an article. Final Fantasy VII Remake gets a PS4 save transfer tool and free DLC confirmed ahead of the PlayStation 5 launch. Which, okay. I guess there's somebody out there that has played Final Fantasy VII and would like to transfer the save file over to... no, the remake could not transfer the original game save file. That wouldn't make any sense. So it's literally just a transfer tool to move the PS4 save file over to the PlayStation 5 save file. Yeah, that's all that could be.
What did I want gold again?
Lots of bones, but make it fashion.
Yeah, I love this job. Of course I do.
Let's see. Gamma Sutra still tweeting kind of irrelevant things like this. Take a look back at the making of Star Wars Galaxies at GDC 2021. So that's just an advertisement for GDC. Destructoid has an article here. Sony Japan Studio has completed its controversial Team Asobi restructure. Let's see. What was the controversy here? Oh. Was this the announcement where it felt like a significant amount of Sony Japan studios were shuttering and laying off people. I think it was. Over the past 6 months, Sony Japan's restructure plans have met with an exodus of amazing talent. This includes Silent Hill director Kiichi Toyo, Bloodborne luminaries Masakai Yamagiwa, Teruyuki Toriyama, and Gravity Rush artist and character designer Sensuke Saito, and veteran producer Kentaro Matamura, how come his name is not linkable, who had previously worked on Bloodborne, Dark Cloud, and Everybody's Golf. So they say now they are done with that. I don't think for a second that means that we are going to have a situation where we stop seeing people leave Sony of Japan studios. I think there is a very high chance that we will still see a fairly consistent trickle of people leaving. Tech Raptor has an article here. Toontown Online is preserved in a massive preservation effort, which, okay, I think we had already kind of heard about this. Another example of Disney kind of abandoning its old, but also, I think, fairly described as forgotten online sites and video game content anyways. It definitely feels like Disney has pretty much abandoned a lot of, or if not almost all of its old video games. Old Star Wars games, old LucasArts games, things they own the rights to. There probably is a longer list of lesser recognizable Fox games too that they've abandoned. I think Disney owns Fox, but maybe they don't. Let's see if this works.
You complete me.
Oh, well, nope. Tech Raptor has an article here. The Celtic RPG Waylanders has been delayed until the fall of 2021. First I've heard of this game, so it being delayed doesn't really affect me. Gamma Sutra has a job listing here for Rare, which we don't see a ton of these, as a rendering engineer in Twycross, UK, which that's a location we don't hear mentioned much. Well, we got one victory. I guess we didn't open any packs today. I'm getting worse and worse about forgetting to open packs. Let's see. Destructoid has an article here. Bloodstained sequel is confirmed to be in a very early planning stages. Good. Like, the last thing you would want to feel is that they had half of a game already developed by the time they had released Bloodstained. Now, I haven't heard any complaints that Bloodstained was too short, but if they cut out half of the content of Bloodstained 1 so that they could have a quicker release of a Bloodstained 2, people would probably not be super happy with that. Although, wow, that is 30. It probably, if you can give me a good game and have another good game almost finished when you hand me the first good game, and then a year later I'm gonna get another good game, I really don't care at that point, personally. I know other people do, and I see their point, but it really only becomes an issue when the first game feels lacking. Like, I could probably make an argument after I play Left 4 Dead 2 to say that Left 4 Dead 2 feels like it's missing. It could have been content in Left 4 Dead 1, and that would have made the first game better. But I could kind of play that game with almost anything. I could say Portal 1 would have been a better game if half of the story and sequence that happened in Portal 2 actually happened in Portal 1, and they balanced those two games, because Portal 1 is a fairly short game at about 12 hours, and Portal 2 is like a 60-hour game. If they both had met somewhere in the middle at 30 hours each, that would have probably been nicer. Which is not really how video game development works, because they very often have to prove people want to play the first game at all before a second game gets the go-ahead. Speaking of games that don't get the go-ahead, I checked in again on a live stream of American McGee, and he was being asked about other video games by his co-anchor, who was maybe reading off the chat the questions, maybe not. And American McGee hadn't played or heard about the other games, or just some of it wasn't just asked about other games. It was asked about video game news stuff that he should be aware of. And yeah, living in China probably does leave you isolated, but it seems to me like he's fairly out of touch with the rest of the video game world, as he's live streaming playing his old game, American McGee's Alice Madness Returns, which that's not inherently a problem, because American McGee and his team can just be the crazy artiste, as it were, that makes Alice games and maybe Oz games, which he's supposedly working on an Oz game too. But it probably also highlights the issue as far as why he hasn't been able to convince EA to, or anybody else, to fund the development of a third Alice game, or why he hasn't gotten other work for other jobs at the same time.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. I would personally find it incredibly difficult if I was an EA executive to have to call to China and over the phone communicate things that I would prefer to have meetings, long face-to-face meetings with. And while most face-to-face meetings and most jobs are BS, I think when you have a creative aspect, such as video games, there actually is an argument towards that. Towards having actual face-to-face meetings. Yep. If anything, I think it's a bigger general life lessons. Don't isolate yourself. Don't move to a country where no one speaks your language.
You've no idea how pitiful and wretched I feel.
There are major difficulties to move to a new country and try to make a career, particularly if you're moving to a country to make a global product anyways.
Stay away from me. Someone as beautiful as her could never understand.
Alright.
Stay away from me. Someone as beautiful as her could never understand. Stay away from me.
Moving on, Destructoid has an article here. A relay or trailer shows off its first footage of Kadakawa's Mecha Mayhem, which I guess we'll have to watch this video to understand that a little bit better. Is the game called Relayer?
She was everything to me.
Yeah, I think it is, and Kodakawa is a Japanese publisher, developer, one and the other.
It won't be long now.
So it feels to me like it's a board game with tactical placement that then breaks down into fight sequences here. I don't know if these are quick time events or things that just happen. I don't know if that wasn't just completely an animation. So they're calling it a turn-based strategy game with heavy RPG and social elements. Right, rush. Oh, oops. Messed up there. Take Raptor as a review of Rising Hell. This is, I suppose, not really that important that I should have covered this game. I guess I don't really care about reviews from Tech Raptor. I probably am not going to care about reviews at all. I suppose it is also worth mentioning that the I guess maybe No More Heroes, the Travis Strikes Again, maybe yeah, the Travis Strikes Again game, I guess maybe that never came to PC. So I wouldn't be surprised if that also gets ported to PC, even though that's kind of the bad one. It does seem to not have any keyboard and mouse support, but I'm not one of those snobs, so that doesn't really bother me.
Why would the dead need a living wage?
Okay. Let's go ahead and evolve and attack.
I've struck it. Get in there.
Oh, waffle cakes.
I have all the workers I need.
There we go. So yeah, the No More Heroes mainline story, which would be No More Heroes 3, must still be in development.
Impressed?
I thought they had gone the other way. I thought they'd put Travis Strikes Again on Steam and not put it on and not put the other games on Steam. But yeah, there definitely was a point at the beginning when Travis Strikes Again came out mostly for the Switch, where it felt like, oh, does that mean No More Heroes 3 is only going to come for the Switch? And I suppose we still don't really know if that's the case or not, but I'd suspect it's not.
Darling, you complete me. Ladies and gentle ghosts, follow me.
Okay. Can I evolve? I need to evolve it using a card effect, which I can't do.
Oh, waffle cakes.
So best case scenario, I do this.
Will you all come? Oh, quit flying around everywhere.
Let's see. TechCraft has an article here. Orc Run and Gunner Warhammer 40k Shootas Blood and Teeth announced. That's a long-running title. It looks like it might be not taking itself particularly seriously, and maybe this is the direction that Warhammer games should go. Like, if it is a standard flat 2D platformer shooter game, then that gives them a lot of opportunity to make a good game, whereas almost every other Warhammer game is always trying to be a it's always trying to be a it's gonna do no damage.
I'll show you.
Warhammer games are always trying to be a 3D first-person shooter experience, and they just never come off particularly good because they set themselves up at that high bar. Destructoid has an article. The Playdate update is coming next week with details on future games and pre-orders. This was the crank-handled or the crank-powered kind of Game Boy clone with custom programmed or program your own, I think, games that are super simplistic. I think you fairly have something like an e-ink screen. I don't think it really is an e-ink screen, but it's very close to that. Something that trying to be very low battery usage. Like, the Playdate itself might have been an interesting idea as kind of an artistic rendition of here's what you can create to have something that would run when all batteries stop being made and all of society is collapsed and electricity no longer exists. That being said, if you are creating a post-apocalyptic game machine, you probably should be creating something that could do a little bit more than just play games. A post-apocalyptic calculator or dictionary or encyclopedia or backup of wiki on a giant ROM chip. Wikipedia. There are softwares that will do that kind of stuff, and particularly if you just get the text version of Wikipedia, it's not an insane amount of space. You're not talking terabytes and terabytes, you're talking maybe 1 terabyte or 2. Now, how you get it into such a small form factor, I don't think you actually would succeed on that effort. But yeah, that doesn't. And at a certain point, things still very much need to be etched in stone to last a long time. Circuitry, capacitors, all the capacitors would have to be electrolytic capacitors to last an extremely long time. I think there's a high chance that if you're talking 200, 300, 400 years in the future, almost anything that has any plastic would have the plastic melt off of it, and the metal and the silicon in any kind of circuitry still probably would break down one way or another. You could probably write an interesting fantasy story to say that there was an Atlantis-like society that once existed thousands of years ago on the world, and all their technology simply turned to dust over time. But for there to be no stories about a society like that other than Atlantis-like tales would have to push them further and further back into the point of no known history.
Oh, guinea pigs, where are you?
We have a technology, and we have for hundreds of years
All systems
had a
stand by.
technology that is very good about storing data, and it's called ink and paper. It's worked very well. Books have worked extremely well. They require no power. They degrade fairly slowly, and they
I'm coming.
relay information with
Detestable.
a fairly good amount of stability. Books don't crash. They tend not to be completely corrupted.
This invention could be my claim to fame.
They're fairly easily copied. So, yeah. There is probably an argument in, if you were at the beginnings of a post-apocalypse, to hunker down
desert
and
awaits.
try and secure a library,
The uncharted
Because-
desert awaits.
you will probably have some people that are just trying to get warmth that would want to
Did I
burn
overreach
books.
myself?
So it's a silly thing to say you might have to guard a library with your life, but you might have to guard a library with your life, and in the long term that would help society a lot more than you would think. Anyways, let's keep on moving down the news. Destructoid has an article here. Shadowrun on Genesis is hotter than a tall cup of soy cough chummer. I have no idea what that
I'm just a
means.
cog in a grinding machine.
This
This is what to you.
seems to be Destructoid talking about an old
This is
game,
what to you.
unless somebody has made a
You'll find gizmos like this every millennium.
demake of a modern game and put it on the Genesis. But since I don't even really, I think Shadowrun is a modern game, so I think this probably is a case of a demake.
Why would the dead need a living wage? Get in there. I have all
There we
the
go.
weaponry.
Impossible.
Destructoid also has an article here, and this is an opinion piece more than anything, so it's not really worth looking at. What games do we want to see, or it says do you want to see, but it's really what they want to see at E3 and the summer of streams. This is an odd choice because this is like a visual novel character,
Destroy
I
the
think.
world, artifacts.
Although this is all an odd choice of games. Like you have Bonk here, you have a Splatoon character, you have the Lego Cities character, which the Lego Cities game was pretty bad. You have the Pikmin, and I recognize this character from some anime, but I couldn't tell you which it was. So here we have somebody that wants the Lego Cities Undercover 2. This is basically a list of games that will never get made. Pikmin 4 probably will get made at some point. Elden Ring, which we haven't heard anything about. Steel Rising, which I think we saw an interesting teaser for this game, and that's as far as it's been gone. Starfield. Splatoon 3. It'd be nice if Nintendo announced a Splatoon 3, but I don't think I'd hold my breath for it.
What did I want gold again?
I guess these opinions are as valid as anybody else as far as what they would be interested in. A Breath of the Wild sequel. Tsukihime remake. Is that the character they had? Yeah. I knew I'd seen a visual novel that character seemed to be from. I think Tsukihime is like Moon Princess or something. Something similar to that. It has something to do with the moon as a word name. Let's see what else. Bonk for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Okay, well that makes more sense than a new Bonk game. Metroid Prime 4. Sure, I'd love to see them actually talk about that, or trilogy on the Switch. If you're gonna ask for trilogy on the Switch, why not ask for a trilogy on PC? Shoot for the moon. But does any of that mean anything? Take it one way, and let's assume They have no foreknowledge. The Destructoid has no insider knowledge. That they haven't secretly talked to people who are going to make presentations at E3. If that's the case, then that's just a wish list. It's a desire. It's pointless to say out loud, frankly. Take it the other way and assume that they all do have insider information and they are actually leaking or tongue-in-cheek leaking what games will be announced. Well, if that's the case, then they've just kind of spoiled the surprise without actually giving any information out at all. None of those games are particularly exciting or new or different. So I don't feel like it would be particularly groundbreaking if all of those games got announced.
Come out wherever you are.
Yeah, nobody here is asking for a crazy announcement. The craziest announcement potentially here would be Lego Cities Undercover 2. And I can tell you that the chance of that coming out is almost zero, because they're still working on the Skywalker Saga reboot, and Lego Cities Undercover was the worst of the Lego games, plus Warner Brothers was just merged and acquired, so that wouldn't make a lot of sense too. And the Skywalker Saga was delayed, so I can't imagine that TT Games would have had extra time to come out with Lego City Undercover 2. The thing particularly around the idea of making a Lego City Undercover 2 would be trying to make a modern city environment that looked different from their Manhattan environment, which they used in the two Marvel Lego games. And almost certainly Lego City was the predecessor to that, so all the concepts and development for Lego City probably was put into things like Lego Batman, the city in Lego Batman, which was fairly small, and then the fairly large Manhattan level, open world level in the adventure games. So I don't know how you take the progress they would have made making Manhattan as an island and then break it apart so it didn't look like Manhattan, and that would give you a new Lego City that would be big enough and overfilled with content enough to make sense. Plus, there's another problem with the idea of having Lego City Undercover 2 come out, in the fact that Lego City Undercover, I think, was to promote a cartoon called Lego City Undercover that's they're not promoting anymore. They've since moved to a different Lego City cartoon where they were giving names to characters in the Lego set a year ago or so, but I'm not sure that cartoon ever came out and was either. So they may be on their second or third failed Lego-centric cartoon series. You also run into the problem that you play as a police officer who goes undercover, and with the whole Black Lives Matter and the highlighting of the police brutality that always was, it would be a terrible time really to try and make a game around that concept. Yeah. There are better things certainly you could remake instead of Lego City if you were just trying to remake the older Lego games or continue the Lego games. excuse me. I think you would take another bite at the apple with Lego Indiana Jones first, or make a Marvel or DC game instead.
I'm coming for detestable. Yeah,
Let's see.
I love
Detestable.
this.
This,
Detestable.
this,
Detestable.
this,
I want to get it all
and
back.
Sight? Check.
And that really is just another example of a article that's not really worth talking about at all. Speaking of things not worth talking about, here's a game on Steam that is clearly just a dumb concept, but at least somebody is trying something different here. You have this asset flipped character with a tennis racket that's way too big, trying to bounce up a ball to collect coins. The dog seems to pick up the ball if you drop it on the ground to reset it for you. This is selling for $1.19, English and Chinese. But I do have to applaud, at least in a different gameplay mechanic. I've never seen somebody try to just play keepy uppies with a ball before. But yeah, obviously this is terrible garbage game. But maybe a concept around that would potentially fix something. Okay, well, I've seen this article a lot of places, but this is Destructoid's take on it. Following the launch of Balan Wonderworld, Yuji Naka is no longer employed by Square Enix. Which, yeah, that game did particularly badly. So I think he was maybe set up to fall on his sword, and I assume quit. It would be... The unions are strong in Japan, so it'd be kind of crazy if he was actually officially on the paperwork fired, but it definitely feels like he has been fired. It was his last shot at making a big time release. I don't think he was given enough support probably from Square Enix, and I think Square Enix would be joking itself if it tried to make the argument that they aren't trying to kind of get rid of a lot of people. It seems like Square Enix, in an even odder reason than Sony of Japan, is trying to get rid of a lot of its Japanese employees and become more of a international company. Japan just had like its lowest birth rate, I believe, ever. And so with its aging population, it may be at the point that a lot of companies are just in slowly decay mode, where they're just trying to lay off all their old employees and not replace them with anybody. On the other hand, it may very well not have had anything to do with that. It may very well have been the case that Balan Wonderland was given all the support it possibly could have been given, and every effort possible was made to help them make a good game, and they still just managed to fail miserably.
Get in there. I have all the weapons I need.
Of course I do. Literally.
But yeah. And I can't say I really disagree with the firing. Like, a lot of times, like, how many times have we seen stories in different industries where the people that worked their butt off and did all the good quality work get laid off, but the terrible management that was making the bad decisions and changing release dates on people or cutting the budgets arbitrarily get to keep their job or get a golden parachute. In this case, it feels like the maker of Balan Wonderworld, the creator of it, probably did deserve to be fired for such a terrible game. Because there's no way you wouldn't have been able to recognize that that was a terrible game in the development process.
I'll chill you to the bone.
Having like no story and extremely linear, boring platforming is something that wouldn't have been acceptable even a decade ago. Here we have a game on Steam called Protoplasm Mutiny, which is looks like an asset flip first-person shooter that has decided to asset flip what look like some kind of low polygon JRPG characters shooting and fighting giant monsters and giant space marines. This is 89 cents, English, Chinese, and Japanese. I'm trying not to cover too many games. I want to leave those for Monday and just get through the news today. Destructoid has an article here. Here's a new free original Pokemon cartoon to watch, which is on YouTube. Okay. Is this actually made by Pokemon, or what? I wonder what this says in Japanese. Is this NHK Kids TV? I don't know what channel Pokemon airs in Japan. But yeah, okay. Suppose if you were a big time Pokemon fan, that might interest you. And here we're waiting for a response. It seems like we had a disconnect, but I haven't had any real network issues so far. So I'm assuming that that was just a case of the other person disconnecting. Honestly, if it is my network that causes these quick disconnects, I'm not particularly motivated to try and fix that. Because it is still way more interesting. We'll go around in circles on this. It's still nice to get those free disconnects and those free victories. OpenCritic has Guilty Gear Strive's latest development. Backyard discusses post-beta changes. If that interests you.
A dazzling victory awaits.
Let's see. Gamma Sutra has an article here. Knockout City hits 5 million players during its 10-day free trial. I heard there definitely were players that were not even doing the dodgeball element of Knockout City, and they had just found a way to grief / knock players off the edge of the map. Which, yeah, that seems like an oversight, to say the least. Gamer Sutra has a job listing for Treyarch. Activision as a senior gameplay engineer in Santa Monica, California, or Vancouver, British Columbia. It would be very weird in any job listing for them to really not have a preference. Gamer Sutra has an article. Steam now lets developers join forces and create their own bundles, which I guess before this they had to work through Steam to create a cross-developer bundle, which, yeah, this may very well be a direct response, something somebody just whipped up after a couple of days of the Humble Bundle issue. Humble Bundle no longer allowing you to give things to charity. Although I'm not sure if you can have anything go to charity through Steam anyways. I bet the answer is a resounding no. So, like, different developers can make bundles, and we may start to see a lot of that. One thing that this might show, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is the real reason that Valve is even implementing the idea of cross-developer and cross-publisher bundles, is it may give a valuable metric to Valve to say, hey, if we find a publisher or developer is flooding Steam with garbage, low-effort games for 69 cents, and then they are bundling it and getting the approval from the other developers and publishers to bundle it with other games, whether those are low effort 69 cents games or not, that might give them enough of a connection to say, well, you're associating by making this bundle with somebody that we really don't like. Let's kick both of these stores off the platform and let's clean up Steam that way. But you really wouldn't need to do that, so that's probably not what Steam is going for, because it would be fairly easy just to have standard scanning, like, searches. Just daily results for show me all the games that are 69 cents. Show me the thumbnails of every game that's 69 cents. Let me just scroll through all of these and see. Honestly, they need to be looking at every game that comes out first and foremost anyways. There's just no excuse to let things unobserved appear on this store. Gemetsu has an article here. A romance visual novel called Idle Days has been announced for Switch. Can a delinquent girl transform into an idol? Now, delinquent, what they mean by that is probably a tomboyish fighter girl. That's what does the action pose of her kicking upward and having her hands out in kind of a karate pose. I suppose since this is a Switch game, it's probably not going to be too objectionable. So yeah, a kind of aggressive fighting girl getting turned into the cutesy Japanese idol character is a character switch, certainly, and so I could see the focus there. But yeah, seems like it's all gonna just be focused on the girl, and you're not gonna see any other characters, and all this trailer is just gonna show you the girl more and more. Alright, yeah. It's a slightly different twist on the visual novel. You probably are gonna end up playing as the producer character.
Today we'll lift some heavy scriptures.
Gemetsu has Blaster Master Zero Trilogy Meta Fight Chronicle Japanese voice cast trailer. If you want to check that out, you wouldn't be able to hear it anyway, so I won't bother to play that. Let's see. Destructoid says Spelunky HD is coming to the PS4 and Switch. I think we may have already talked about that. My memory is so bad I probably shouldn't even bother to say that, because that's probably pointless information. Gran Turismo 7 is in development for the PS4 alongside its PS5 edition, according to Destructoid. TechRaptor has an article. Final Total War Warhammer 2 DLC Sons and Fury has been announced. Which, okay. You're playing Total War. hit
To
that.
the zenith. For there I will rise.
Then in the turn. Let's see. Tech Raptor has an article. The Halo composer Marty O'Donnell is considering retiring from the gaming industry, which
Quicksilver barrier. Activating
which
Ometeot. All
frankly
systems
doesn't
stand
mean
by.
anything. Like, if someone is
All systems stand
outwardly
by.
saying
All
they're
systems
considering
going
retiring,
into overdrive.
what they're probably doing is the exact opposite.
Blast boosters ready.
By the time
Foot
you've
on
actually
full
made the
throttle.
decision that you're retiring, you're just going to announce your retirement, and you're going to stay quiet.
Ometeot, all
If you're
systems.
talking
We're
about
going into
quitting,
overdrive.
then you're probably just being whiny or complaining or hashing out a fight in a public
I will
forum,
rise again.
which is usually not the professional way to do things, although frankly being professional all the time doesn't succeed in a lot of industries, and cutthroat and whining in public and publicly airing out dirty laundry sometimes works in some industries. Gametsu has Wizardry, the 5 Ordeals for Steam, launching in early access in June, which, let's see if we can figure out what this game looks like. If anything, it looks like a really old NES game, but it, to me, looks like they've maybe remade it. Yeah, to me it looks like, if we were to jump back here, the original Wizardry was probably just these vector lines as far as a dungeon crawler, and they've not changed probably any of the video game elements, but they've reskinned it to make it look something like a modern game. But the original game was in 2006, so that's weird. Like, I was expecting a game that would have been released in the 70s.
My blade is your salvation.
Punish the wicked. Spare the innocent.
I'm so useless.
Right.
A fair a day keeps the doctor away.
And yeah. Actually, I should have attacked first and then healed back, but whatever. Let's see. Gametsu has Samurai Warriors 5 detailing Citadel mode vault in my castle, which, yeah, I guess if you're interested in the Warriors game, these different modes probably will explain themselves as far as the side games. Destructoid says Neo, The World Ends With You channels the DS original for its creative combat system.
This invention could be
Which-
my claim to fame.
I may get around to playing one of the World Ends With You games, but I'm not really interested in being super hyped about it right now. Destructoid says Nintendo is asking people if they'd spend $50 on the new WarioWare game, which I think the answer
Oh Lord.
is probably yes.
Activating Ometeot. All systems stand by.
I think people will say yes, even if the answer really is no.
Ometeot. All systems. We're going into overdrive.
I think it's a mistake probably to think of the WarioWare games as a $60 upfront game, though. And WarioWare clearly is something that should
Going
be
into overdrive.
a $30, maybe $40 game with DLC later. That would totally make way more sense. And if we attack this now, I think that's what we're doing.
Reach myself?
Today
Do
we'll lift
this.
some heavy scriptures.
And then we'll do that. Destructoid has an article here. EA E3 fan registration is open. The ESA confirms Square Enix and Capcom stream dates, which is Square Enix 13th, Capcom June 14th. It'll be interesting to see what Square Enix really has to talk about. It's probably going to be just a whole lot of Final Fantasy stuff. Here we have a game on Steam called Rhythm Hero. We have hit the point where I'm gonna have to go through some of these games. This looks poorly like a poor mixture of random assets. $2.79 English and Korean. It's a rhythm game too, which is a problem.
Blast boosters ready. We're going full throttle.
Here we have a game on Steam called The Spirit, which looks like a Diablo clone. And it looks visually polished enough to at least deserve a follow. This is $11.04, English only. Oh, I tried to look at my Nightbot
And that concludes today's sermon.
plugin, and the website wouldn't load. I don't know if that's because of my network issues or if Nightbot maybe is just down, or maybe Nightbot's dead completely. If I had more people in chat in general, there probably is. We are probably past the point where it would make a good amount of sense to move
Repeat, we're on red alert.
to a different bot or try to add more bots. Yeah, we have a game on Steam called Doombringer. I will do that at some point if I just have a massive amount of people on the chat, but
Vice, virtue, avarice, tolerance.
these pictures still don't want to load.
What if this is not the end?
You know what I probably should do is I should look to see if I have turned off the feature that's supposed to make links to links on the page automatically load to speed up internet browsing. I should see if I could turn that on specifically for Steam. That way those pages would load faster. Anyways, Doombringer just looks like a Doom clone. It's $14.99 English only, early access. I'm gonna say no to that.
This one's for my
My
family.
mouth is drying out.
Mother, father.
I can hear it.
Come on.
You hear it in the way I talk. There's a comedian, I believe his name is Rich Voss, that has major problems with just overproduction of saliva or something, and he sounds horrible. And he's doing podcasts, although I think a major amount of his overproduction of saliva may have to do with the fact that he's an admitted hardcore drug addict, or who is now in recovery. But you know, doing a massive amount of drugs could very well mess up your mouth, your teeth, and everything else. We have a game on Steam here called Tungsuka The Visitation, which looks like it's a post-apocalyptic open-world top-down shooter. $19.99 English only. Let's see if we can just reload the page and show off some of the screenshots some more. I guess I'll put this on the follow list. There might be something to it. It's kind of maybe a Fallout clone. Let's see. TechCraft has an article. Activision Mobile is a new
Kinda haunted.
studio making AAA mobile games. Now this is an article from TechCrafter that was covered by Destructoid, so that is one game that didn't need to, one article that didn't need to be opened up a second time. But
Magic is a sound.
most of these other TechRaptor articles have run into this problem of them being unique enough that Destructoid is not covering them or covering the same subject or the same news story, which right now TechRaptor is maintaining the bar for quality as far as video game news, or at least quantity or coverage. I guess coverage is probably the best word to use there. So unless I can find one or more quality coverage sites to replace TechRaptor, I may be stuck going back to begrudgingly using TechRaptor for a while. We may very well just get down to Google News searches and just cut out the middleman. That feels like that would be a lot of work to do, though.
Witness the fury of my curse.
Say goodbye.
I should have played that. TechRaptor has an article here. Injustice 2 Mobile Global Pride Challenge asks you to beat up an LGBT character. So they're saying that's a kind of backlash. So Poison Ivy is sometimes depicted, although I don't think in the mainline DC universe it's true, as being a lesbian. She definitely was dating Harley Quinn in a side universe story. That being said, all of that is kind of mute.
I shall give birth to a new world.
The uncharted desert awaits.
So that's DC has not been committed to that idea, certainly. And since this is a mobile game, this is basically a world boss character where the entire community is attacking a boss with a massive amount of health to take them down. Since it is basically a fighting game, Injustice 2, it would be benevolent sexism, or perhaps benevolent homophobia, which is something that doesn't get mentioned or said a lot, to say, well, because this character in some stories is gay, is a lesbian, that she should not be the big boss and the focus of the game. I think this is kind of a great example of people making the wrong arguments completely. Like, the star, this is basically the same idea around why there are no female action stars, is because the sexist people that make movies don't want to see a woman get beat up, whereas that's the only way they could be in action movies, is if they were going to be on at least a certain level of success. Come on. I need to
Thus the world begins.
go ahead and hit this.
What do we have here?
Hit this.
Mean.
Hit this.
Nothing personal. It's justice.
Best of luck to you.
Don't take this
Then
personal.
hit that. Go ahead and play that and draw another card. So yeah, I don't see a real problem here. Like in a fighting game, if you are the only real problem I can say here is that maybe Injustice 2, as a mobile game, shouldn't have had a Pride Global Challenge in the first place, and should have just stayed apolitical. And this is just another example of why staying apolitical
You're a solid
is the
fighter.
smart move for any video game company. Is because the second you make a political statement, you've got somebody pissed off at you on one side or the other. But honestly, for that type of game, that makes sense. In the exact same way that if Dragon Ball Z Fighter Z wanted to have a Pride celebration, and so they created a super strong special version of one of the few female fighters in the Dragon Ball Z universe. There aren't too many of them, and they all came fairly late to the party. You have Android 18, I believe, as a fighter, but she was an android, not a human. And then you have eventually they had like a female Boo character that was added for the fighting game itself. And then there's a female what are they called? Saiyans? Yeah. There's a female Saiyan character that I think was added to the series extremely late in like GT or something. So like the third or fourth iteration of Dragon Ball. Frieza is technically a female, but voiced basically with a male voice in the English and does not look human. Yep, which now that I actually think about it, it is fairly obvious that Dragon Ball Z is barely crawling with benevolent sexism. I guess Power Rangers, the Japanese version, was originally that way too. But by the time they got to the third or fourth iteration, even the Japanese Power Rangers were, I think, trying. I don't know. I don't know if the actual original show of which the footage that was taken to make Power Rangers ever had any female characters. That's an interesting thought. So that there's potential research there I'd have to do if I really cared, but I don't. I would say also Injustice 2 having Ivy look like Ivy, dress like Ivy dresses, and be the big focus of the big event is way better than what it could have been. Because if it were, for instance, Ivy in not wearing actual clothes instead of wearing plants, where Ivy is almost always wearing plants and not really any clothes at all. But if instead she was wearing actual clothes and it was all just rainbow flag colors, or it was just the most stereotypical gay setup you could possibly see, that would be crazy. Or if it was instead Superman, who has very much canonically been a straight character in leather assless chaps as the main character, that would certainly be a lot more offensive. Plus, it would be off character. So yeah, that whole idea would not really fly. Let's see. Are we gonna survive long enough
Mana, come forth.
to make it to the next turn? Probably not. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Operation Fate, which looks like a low-effort top-down tank game. It's early access for $2.99, English only, third-party EULA. I would like to see them get rid of the idea of being able to release something through Steam Direct and have a third-party user license agreement. I think that option should be reserved for people with a direct relationship with Valve. Moving on, Gametsu Demon Slayer has some more characters. These are characters in outfits set in a more modern time, and
Time to get started.
this is,
Enhance. Fire.
I think, kind of a spin-off fantasy story of the characters in modern times instead of in ancient times fighting demons. Yeah, this is the this might actually be a completely different game. I don't think it is. It'd be very weird to make two different games. But the Hinokami Chronicles might really be a different game. Alright, well. Demon Slayer is very popular. Although you are in a catch-22, I have to like the first season on Netflix, so I could watch it. But I am fairly certain the first season is only going to go so far. But I guess that's pretty much, if I'm going to watch it, the only way I would be able to watch it. And it's probably the same situation everybody else is in, really, too.
I'll get production up and running.
There might be a season 2, but I doubt the anime version of the story ends at season 2 any more than it would end at season 1.
I'm so useless.
Let's see, Gamatsu has an article here. Pixel Opus is developing Unreal Engine 5 PS5 games in collaboration with Sony Picture Animation. While I'm playing Left 4 Dead, I can't help but compare it to what I've seen, what it seems like PlayStation 5's, the Unreal Engine 5 can do. And honestly, it makes a 13-year-old game running on Source Engine 1 kind of highlights that Source Engine 1 is definitely pretty terrible now, but it feels like it wasn't particularly a great engine even 13 years ago. Which probably highlights why there weren't that many games that decided to make that many game developers that decided to use the Source Engine over the Unreal Engine. And Valve was incredibly too slow to let people use the Source Engine for a cheap or free license for small and indie games.
So, you saw through me.
They only started to do that, I think, 2 or 3 years ago, whereas they probably should have done it 10 years ago.
I go with the wind.
Pixel Opus is the developer of the game where you wandered around and painted the city. I don't think anything really came about with that game, though. It came out and people were fairly unimpressed. Destructoid says Shiro Takasada Makusa will be in devastating power to Samurai Showdown. So yet another character coming out for Samurai Showdown. And then let's see. They have this article, Nintendo download : hentai versus evil ?
Small things in life.
Which this seems to be a list of all the eShop games that were listed on Switch, which does seem like the
Useless.
number of games that are being released are fairly high, and there seems to be no curation.
Coming at you.
And I definitely would believe that the Nintendo eShop should be a lot more curated. From the screenshot,
In my eyes.
this is probably an incredibly low effort game with an asset flip of an anime girl versus a Reaper character. But I bet it actually doesn't have much adult content, if any adult content. But I would say words have meanings, and they have meaning even in other people's languages, so the word pervert, or being used generally as perverted material, should not just be thrown around to mean every single anime moe-esque character. Destructoid also has this article, Netflix Geek Week will spotlight Cuphead and The Witcher June 11th. So they will dedicate dedicate a segment of its week-long Netflix Geek Week celebrations to look at upcoming movies and TV shows based on various video game franchise. So the Cuphead show, I guess, is being developed. Resident Evil Infinite Darkness, I think it's already out. I've seen all of Castlevania, and I think they're done with that. A season 2 of The Witcher live action. I haven't watched any of Dota. I've never played any of Dota 2, so I don't know if it's really worth my efforts to watch Dota. In a funny way, I think Cuphead probably is going to be a better cartoon than it ever could have been as a video game, just because of the level of frustration and difficulty in the Cuphead game. The challenge is just set so high. Here we have a game on Steam called Breach Wanderers, which looks like it's a card-based RPG. Early access $14.99, English and French. Nope to that. Here we have a game called Oversight, which is a turn-based strategy game of no real quality. $9.99, English only. Nope to that. Here we have Grim Tales Threads of Destiny Collector's Edition. Will it be $12.99 or $9.99? $8.99, English full audio. Seems like the Big Fish games are increasingly taking less money, or asking for less money.
Now the fight begins.
I still have a slight speculation that it might be whenever my air conditioner comes on, that it's pulling so much electricity in my house that it is messing up my networking. So maybe that would be explain some of these slight delays, but probably not. Probably if I see a long delay and then I see a bunch of actions take place, that probably means that the person was literally just taking their time. Alright, well, we'll do this,
Fresh mana melons and potion fruit.
and then
Feel my
do
fury.
that. And
Go.
we'll do this.
Hunger is sharper than any blade. Freshness guaranteed.
Such a good guinea pig.
Here we have a game on Steam called Brick Square, which seems to be an infinite runner with people shooting at you and you
Flies.
hacking and slashing and picking up cans, and if this was moving a little bit faster and was a little bit more polished, more of a game and less of a just generic repetition of content, there might be an idea here. Although, honestly, this is taking what would have been a cool cutscene and turning it into a bad game, which I think a lot of game developers do that. It's in VR, it's free, so I guess the price is right, but yeah, I'm not particularly impressed enough with it. I suspect a lot of games, if they had just had cutscenes for certain sections instead of trying to cram video game mechanics into those sections, would have been way better. Right.
Hey, check this out.
Where should I drop this lightning? Oops, my hand slipped.
There we go. Next, we have a game on Steam called Myth of Aetherny, which looks like it's just an RPG Maker game. Seems to be maybe based on the Bible. I don't recognize Aetherny though. Yeah. English not supported, $5.99. Germany only. So Aetherny maybe a German word that means something else. That's why I don't recognize it. Or it could be that it is just kind of a random game. Here we have a game called Time of Piracy, which is just a platforming game of no quality. 59 cents, English only. Okay, we need to do this.
Give birth to a new world.
And then this. Then I could kill this. So I probably should. Here we have something called the Handbook, which looks like paper cutout characters. But otherwise it looks like just an RPG. I don't hate the idea of trying to make a game based on paper cutout characters, but I think it probably fails until you get to a high level of drawing ability such as Paper Mario. Like, I think that is the bare minimum of animation style to take that different art style. Same is kind of true for like Yoshi's Woolly World until it is that high level of animation for a game like that. Trying to make a game where the characters are made out of wool does not work. Here we have a game called Skinwalker Hunt, which looks very similar to Left 4 Dead in a few places. This actually looks slightly interesting. I know this is probably just an asset flip game, but having the cryptids attack you, it's an interesting thought. $8.99 English, Russian, and Chinese, single player only, early access. I think it's got too many negative things around it to make me think this is actually good. But just in case, I'm going to put this on the follow list. Okay.
There is no escape from the apocalypse to come.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna lose here anyways. Gematria has Warhammer Ages of Sigmar Tempest Fall gameplay reveal and screenshots. So this is another standard 3D Warhammer game that again is questionable about whether the quality is going to be good or not. This isn't in the 40k part of the timeline, so this is just fantasy, not Space Marines. In a lot of ways, Warhammer is so prevalent with its content that it should be the default tabletop game people know about versus Dungeons and Dragons, but Dungeons and Dragons just came first. Here they have the turn-based tactical RPG Warhammer 40k Chaos Gate Demon Hunters announced for PC. Let's see what this one looks like. This will be the Space Marines stuff. It's just blackness and then blackness and showing off the armor, and that's it. Yep, not really showing off much of anything.
The hour of judgment has come.
Well, they done messed up there.
Big trouble now.
See, Komatsu also has King's Bounty 2 Special Edition pre-order bonuses announced.
Beloved little sister.
So, looks like you can get a decent amount of
Mortals shall
Kitsch.
learn to be benevolent.
Let's see. Destructoid has a review for Bubble Bobble 3D Vacation Odyssey. See what their overall review is. Well, I guess it wasn't really a review, was it? They're just talking about it as a VR 3D Bubble Bobble.
I lost. You're tough.
Was not expecting to lose there, but whatever. We mostly got all of these things done today, and all I really need to do is burn through a decent amount of games, and then we'd be done. So we're still going forward, but it feels like I'm fairly close to being done with the news. A lot of that certainly comes down to the fact that E3 is next week, so yeah, or thereabout, like 8 days away,
You must die.
I suppose.
Bear the past, but seize the future.
So anyways, Destructoid says Devolver Digital teases a June 12th stream with enigmatic picture of its favorite CSO. This is the actress they have that plays Nina Struthers. And I would say I'm fairly over the gimmick as far as Devolver Digital. It seems like they're not likely to release or announce any games of major importance or major interest. So that they may announce one game that comes out and it may be fine for the next year, one, maybe two, maybe three. There was some talk of them trying to be a publisher, so maybe they'll publish some other small indie games. But I bet whatever they do publish won't be even particularly that important. Let's see, Destructoid has a Square Enix 3 stream set for June 13th. Life is Strange, Babylon's Fall, and more expected to be talked about. Life is Strange True Colors.
All mine.
So, yeah. It's basically an announcement for an announcement, though, to say that they're going to have an E3 announcement. Let's see, well, basically have to do this. Then do this.
Let's speed things up. Too slow.
Do that.
Wait, not yet.
I like. Give me that.
Destructoid has an article here. The Atari VCS console will finally hit the resale stores on June 15th, priced at $300, and really no reason in the world that you would actually buy it. That is a ridiculously high cost. Even if you were nostalgic for the Atari, I mean, it should be a $40 device, not something bigger. Even if it has a full PC in it that actually is something that's quite powerful.
This here's all
That's a
mine.
very hard sell for that size. Here we have a game on Steam called Detective Rosie Morgan, Murder on the River Thames. Looks like it is a visual novel murder mystery game. A lot of female characters, or at least the same 3 or 4 female characters. $4.79, English only. I wouldn't be surprised if this is a game where there just are no male characters at all. It's a world where everyone is female. I'm gonna put this on the fall list. I think it looks intriguing enough.
It looks like I'm up. Wait, right, yes. It looks like I'm up. Wait, right, yes.
I like. Give me that.
There we go. Here we have a game on Steam called Tetracosm, which looks like it's a platforming game with some pretty bad graphics, as far as I can tell. Yeah. Doesn't seem like there's really much here. Other than that, just platforming, running from point A to point B. $7.99, English only. Yeah, I don't see it. It's kind of weird to see a dragon character that can rocket boost itself. Here we have a game on Steam called Train Tycoon, which looks like it's mostly text strategy game for $3.99. Bunch of languages. Here we have one called Reverse Story. I guess is how that's supposed to be pronounced. Which just looks like a kind of, they're calling it a Metroidvania. To me it looks more like a frustration platforming game first. Just a lot of lasers that you have to dodge. Let's see. $2.99. Looks like it might be one of these Toho fan games too. Bullet bike. Bullet bike. Do we want to evolve? Well, we're gonna have to do one or the other, so I imagine
Today.
we should do this.
Is that how you treat a lady?
And
This town eats good folk for breakfast.
see, next we have a game on Steam called Noesis 2, which obviously is a visual novel. Here you've got the Moe characters, fairly young looking characters in school outfits. Although it doesn't say there's any adult content in this game. English is not supported, Chinese only, $1.19, which I guess that makes the story barely work. Now this is weird to have a conversation in a car and then have the characters animated standing. Like, you just wouldn't want to use that background in my opinion. Okay. We're gonna gamble. And
Too slow.
that. 4, 6, 7, 8. Evolve
You are
and
done
win.
for.
Armor weapons more. I like. Give me that.
Is that how you treat a
Too
lady?
slow. Your power. It's the real thing.
Next, we have a game called No Ghosts Stay Home, which is tagged as a cute horror game. Seems like there might be something here, but there might not. See. Seems like it might very well just take place in this one scene, and you're trying to solve the puzzle as far as getting the ghost to go away. It feels like this really could just be a creep jump scare game where things are going to move. You can see there's a man trapped in the cage in the background. There's a presence there. So things are moving around. I think this is probably more of a joke game than it seems. 23 achievements, 99 cents. Although I might be able to personally go along with this joke concept. This might work because it might be
The pleasure was all mine.
subverting expectations enough. Here we have a game on Steam called Chubby Bear Smash, which sounds like a kid's game. Question is there really a game here? I think the answer is probably no. It seems just to be a bear that punches things. So it's just like a button masher would be my guess. Or a clicker. It does have a motion detection using the webcam, which that's an interesting concept, but it's not a game. So weave and dodge using a webcam. I'd actually like to see people's feedback on this. $7.19. The technology underlying getting a skeletal framework of a character is probably fairly polished, so it would probably at least half work. I can't promise anything more than that. Man, I am just wearing out my voice like crazy. What really gets me is I'm at this point not really even saying much when I record the Left 4 Dead episodes, because there's basically nothing more to say about the game. You just run and shoot zombies, and then you run and shoot zombies. Alright, well, I'm going to try and soldier on, but I may just have to end this episode just fairly prematurely because I'm wearing out my voice. This game, Wings of Darkness, which was on the fall list, is mostly negative, unfortunately. So I think we can take that off the fall list. Let's see
You must
the reviews as to why people don't like it.
This one's for my family.
Finished the game in 2.8 hours. AI breaking. Its gameplay is fun but shallow. There's apparently a celebrity in it. Game is mind-numbing. It's like Ace Combat, except for you're controlling something way more powerful and easy to control. So it could be that mecha games, where you would be flying around controlling a mecha fighting monsters, those types of players are expecting a lot more challenge than what this game is offering. That's probably the case. I don't think there are easy people looking for an easy mode in mecha games at the moment. I don't think there's a fandom that thinks that way, whereas that probably would work very well for me. There is also a problem with potentially having just linear paths kind of in the way of a Star Fox game, where that does not really work. It doesn't really work even for a Star Fox game. And so if they were to make a new Star Fox type game where you're flying from point A to point B and enemies are popping up and you have to shoot them. I think you have to have a lot of branching paths. I think you have to have have a lot of polish and a lot of variety and a much longer experience. The other game, the Magnificent Truffle Pigs from AMC Games, is mixed. I don't think this actually was a game anyways. So, yeah. At 64%. I guess I'll leave this one on the fall list, but I'm not super surprised that people wouldn't be impressed by something made by AMC.
The uncharted desert awaits. Too slow.
I think it is pretty much just a walking simulator experience more than anything. Here we have a game called Mainframe Defenders Meltdown Prologue, which obviously is a demo, so it's not going to make it to the fall list, but also it looks like it is a fairly pixely top-down dungeon crawler. Free to play, several languages, so I guess being a demo and being free,
I go with the wind.
there's no surprise there.
What do we have here? Too slow.
Next we have a game called A Warmer Shade of Summer, which looks like it's a dating sim visual novel. It seems to be fairly text-based, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's Chinese. Free, English only, but then $4.99 DLC. This is probably way too short. And this 5.2.6 Productions is not even listed. Nope, that was just a glitch on Steam's part. Well, they don't have any other games, so yeah. And it doesn't seem like there's anything terribly objectionable with the content. It just seems fairly generic.
I go with the wind. Got to roam in style.
Too slow.
Next we have a game called Brain to Brain, which looks like it's a platformer where you're playing as a brain,
Be gone.
which probably doesn't really change much. It's 89 cents, English only. It could have been a rabbit or a goat, just anything that kind of bounces more than climbs. If I play Dutiful Steed, I think I have to play
This
this.
town eats good folk for breakfast.
And then maybe this. And then
The
this.
uncharted desert awaits.
You are done for.
I'm ready for more. What do we have here?
Well, on to the next project.
Let's see. Next, we have a game on Steam called Pro Cycling Manager 2021, which is another one of these simulation games that tries to make it look like it's way more than it actually is. $39.99 English and French.
Repent your wicked deeds.
It won't be long now.
Here we have a game called Bitten, where
Pierce him through.
it seems like it's a multiplayer zombie game of some sort.
The uncharted
Feels
desert awaits.
pretty low polygon and fairly generic. $2.99 English or Russian. Two quick bladers and let's do this.
I need more fear, more terror.
Got a job to do.
Keep this one. Keep this one. And keep one of these.
Loyalty is ironclad.
It won't be long now.
Harder armor,
yourself.
Best of luck to you.
And loyalty
There
is
we go.
ironclad.
Here we have Tour de France 2021, which maybe this is the exact same company that made the cycle management game, or maybe they're just labeling it two different things, because it looks definitely like it's the exact same game. I think a Tour de France bicycle racing game would be fairly boring anyways. $3.99 English and French. I don't know how you spice up one single race enough to make a whole game out of it. I think you would need two or three
Too slow.
major races with with probably a dozen or more practice races or smaller races, and you need to
Designs are like
introduce
unhatched dragon eggs.
something very specific to make the racing feel like a video game. Because honestly, the only biking game that I could imagine would be fun to most players would be a BMX racing trick game where you're doing tricks, things like that.
The uncharted desert awaits.
And that.
I go with the wind. Got to roam in style.
Well, that's too bad.
I don't think I'm gonna win here. Yeah, we have a game on Steam called Brick Breaker Unicorn, which is just an Arkanoid clone. $4.79, English only. Yeah, we have a game called After School Murder Club, which obviously is a low effort joke visual novel. I'm fairly certain we've seen these characters used in other games. Free, English only. And again, not something I think Valve wants to be associated with. So it's very weird to just have that show up. Here we have a game called Zombie Wars, which looks visually polished enough that it might actually be something.
A dazzling
I
victory
suspect
awaits.
it isn't.
I hearken to the prayers of the innocent.
Guess we'd have to actually let the video play to get a better idea of how this played. Running and gunning in asset flipped areas where zombies are just appearing. See, and this is the problem with Left 4 Dead, is that this, which can be done by a single person just by asset flipping things from the Unreal Asset Store, is basically all Left 4 Dead is. You turn around and when you're not looking, zombies appear. You're walking in a very generic area, and zombies just come in waves. Sometimes you get some upgrades, but actually there's less guns in Left 4 Dead than what I'm seeing even in this game. And there's a score system in this game, and there isn't one in Left 4 Dead that is shown while you're actually playing. There's some secret scores that's keeping in the background. Zombie Wars is $5.59, English, German, and Turkish, and obviously it's not making it to the fall list, but that just really goes to highlight how far a 13-year-old game can fall, and so they probably should just reboot the Left 4 Dead series. It wouldn't hurt one bit for them to reboot Counter-Strike, Left 4 Dead, Half-Life, and just say, hey, we need to start all over again. Maybe you can't do Half-Life, but they could reboot Portal easily. They could reboot Left 4 Dead. They could just say, yeah, those old games need to be replaced with new games with the same names, because you're getting shown up by random nobodies on your own storefront. Here we have a game on Steam called Tin Shift, where This entire trailer has this guy playing guitar, which is interesting. Trailer, because it actually feels like a real trailer. This actually feels like this might be a game, but it's only online PvP, and it has in-app purchases, and it's $8.99. It's English, Russian, Ukrainian, so it's not the type of game for me. Yeah, we have a game on Steam called Game Dev Masters, which just looks like an asset flip simulation game. Early access, $11.99, English only. Let's hit that.
All the fluffy hugs.
Yeah, Destructoid has an article. The post-apocalyptic adventure Death Trash is getting a demo this month. Again, I don't know if it's really news to announce a demo coming out. It seems unnecessary. Here we have a game on Steam called The Last Spell, which is a turn-based combat game with some tower defense elements, but several other elements that I think probably would protect it from just being described as a tower defense game. I'm not a huge fan of turn-based games, but this is very positive, so I'll put it on the fall list. $17.99 is fairly expensive. English, Chinese, and French. That's a fairly odd combination of languages too. Let's see. Guess we
There is
do
not a
this.
soul without sin.
My blade is your salvation.
Punish the wicked. Spare the innocent.
No way!
Let judgment fall.
Ah, it's pouring!
Here we have a game called Sunblaze. I saw this game actually advertised on my Facebook, which is weird because I've never seen a video game that came out on Steam or PC advertised as a sponsored link on Facebook before. And so I was very interested to see if maybe this is a game I would just totally miss. This does look like it is just a platforming game, but it doesn't look like it's a particularly bad platforming game. Although it does still just look like frustration platforming game. I'm going to give this a follow. We can see it's already positive. But there's a high chance this is not the game for me. Seems like this character is being drawn in like 80s workout clothes, for lack of a better description, and seems like a lot of the achievements are somewhat lewd in the art. So there might be an odd combination here between a cutesy small red-headed lady whose hair at the scale would be dragging on the floor and a frustration platformer. We kind of had that with the Gianna sisters too, and apparently it's the dad that's she's trying to wake up or save, because he seems to be in several different areas.
I'm already a proper lady, you know.
So, you withstood it all.
So yeah, well, I'll be interested to see if I see anybody actually review Sunblaze, because we know that clearly they're doing some advertising. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see too many reviews of any games at this time, though. I wouldn't be surprised if everybody is just working towards E3.
Though I set, I will rise again.
Today we'll lift some heavy scriptures.
Next we have a game on Steam called Find All, which is Hand-drawn hidden object games. It's rated positive. 89 cents. A whole bunch of languages. English, Japanese, Russian, and Chinese. I think I might leave this on the follow list just to see. There might be enough of an idea here to want to play this.
Concludes today's sermon.
But it also might very well be only 100 items that you can find for 89 cents. Yeah, it probably is just 100 items. Let's see.
All the fluffy hugs.
And we'll try this.
A fair a day keeps the doctor away.
Didn't all in return. Here we have a game on Steam called Until We Die, which is mixed as a strategy side-scroller survival game.
Sorry, you have no bone for the likes
It
of
looks like a decent game, so I wonder why people don't like it. $15.29 is probably too expensive. A whole bunch of languages. Let's scroll down to the reviews and see. Graphics, atmosphere, and premise are good. On the other hand, the gameplay has various issues that made playing annoying at times. I feel bad for not recommending it. Defeated the game on season difficulty. No new scenarios appears as of writing. The game has only one map. So the game is basically early access, and it's not labeled as early access, and that's why they're not happy with it. It's a shame. There is also apparently a Steam event of some sort here. We'll have to see what that is all about.
I shall give birth to a new world.
See, indie game, GN Indie Game Carnival. It seems to be highlighting some games I just don't recognize. Like this Pheromonium looks interesting. Can I? Guess I'll have to open that in a new tab. I don't think my plugin would work. It's a very small number of games that they're highlighting. I keep expecting there to be a Steam summer sale just coming out of nowhere, but I don't know. And see, there was a big Lego sale, a big Lego set that was on sale that I wanted to get, and by the time I turned around, I had missed the sale again. So I'm setting myself up for failure, certainly, which I'm going to end up buying a lot during the Steam Games Summer Sale, a lot during an Amazon Prime sale, and a lot during any other sales that pop up.
Everyone deserves a bit of charity.
Yeah, this game, Pheromonium, is on my fall list. It's rated very positively, so at this point there's no reason not to put it on the wish list. $12.99. It looks like a Cuphead game, except for this time maybe going with a slightly different art style, maybe in a Metroidvania gameplay mechanic. Might be a little bit more lewd than Cuphead. Although, in a lot of ways, Cuphead looking kid-friendly and then not playing kid-friendly, I think is just as bad, if not worse, than a game like Pheromonium looking not kid-friendly and then also not playing kid-friendly, because at least then there's some consistency. hit
There is
this,
not a soul without sin.
and then hit this,
You're making me angry.
and then
Winds
evolve
of
this.
light, show your might.
Punish the wicked. Spare the innocent.
Here we have a game on Steam called Faraway Train, which looks to just be probably a Chinese kind of visual novel taking place on a train, which isn't a bad idea. I guess it's not quite a visual novel as much as it's an escape the room type game on a train, which still isn't a bad idea.
Punishment is a blessing in
$17.09 is fairly expensive for a Chinese game. Turns out it's a Japanese game, and that would explain it better. Regardless, it doesn't support English, so it's not going to make it to the fall list. Let's see. Destroy that. And then play this.
To the zenith. For there I will rise.
And play this.
What was that?
Next, we have a game on Steam called The Slaughterer Magdalene,
Though I said,
which
I
looks
will
like it's a
rise
point-and-click game. But honestly, it looks like you're just painting.
Light, show your might.
It seems like this is a
Faith is an expensive
demo
business.
for a game called The Slaughterer Act 1,
This is not the end.
which looks completely different and came out in 2016. So, I guess the real question would be, is this point-and-click adventure game going anywhere fast? And I would say the answer is probably no. So, they'd like you to play this free demo prequel and then play the point-and-click adventure game that's labeled as Act 1. I think I can't agree to that. I think that's asking for a lot of commitment to play the prequel or even play Act 1. I can leave it on the fall list and see if it ever gets an Act 2, but I'd probably also just want to ignore it until there is an Act 2. So yeah, just take it off the fall list.
This one's for
'Cause
my family.
you need to see it either change its name and say there is no Act 2 ever coming, or for them to make an Act 2. Next, we have a game on Steam called Slipways, which looks like it's a turn-based strategy, maybe puzzle game. Seems like it might very well be a trading game, like Zillionaire, but better. Alright, well, I'll put this on the fall list since it's very positive. I want to think about it just a little bit, but I wouldn't be surprised if the idea of dragging nodes together is smart enough. $16.99 is fairly expensive for a game that looks like this, but not crazy expensive. Here we have a game on Steam called Suicide Guide Deluxe Edition, which is an odd name, certainly. I feel like this game existed before, but I could be wrong. Seems like it's a joke game. Let me see if this developer's made something else. This other game is positive with 20 reviews and came out in February. I feel like I would just not be able to play or cover this game because of YouTube rules alone. That being said, I guess I'll just put it on the fall list and see if people review it or not. Seems to not really be much of anything. Let's see. Game of Sutra has an article here. Tencent opens a new LA office to consolidate its workforce and enable further expansion. It almost feels like Tencent is literally trying to move its business outside of China. I don't know if the Chinese government would ever let you do that.
This wasteland's a
Though,
fixer-upper.
or if anything, it may be just like they're doing a lot for show, and that's really not what's happening at all. I suspect a lot of companies would like to do business with Tencent, but don't want the backlash of looking like they're working directly with the Chinese government. So them having an office in LA could let people confuse the issue.
My raging flames have got your twig won't do a
This
thing.
is pure craftsmanship.
Next, we have a game on Steam here called Big Box Cat Bash, which seems to just be an infinite runner mobile game of some sort. I think the cat's trying to bash into the cars. 89 cents, bunch of languages, uninteresting game.
I've seen them.
Let's see. Here we have a game on Steam called Karma, which is just a car driving around a tiny little planet. From the looks of
You're
it,
a fiery one.
it doesn't
Well,
look
on to the next project.
particularly any more complicated than that. Free to play, single player online PvP, English, Spain, Spanish, and Portuguese. Play this. And then play this.
Designs are like unhatched dragon eggs.
And then play that. Here we have a game on Steam called The Power of 10, which looks like a space shooter game. Not very visually polished. Early access $13.49, bunch of languages. Yep, and I'm trying to go through these games fairly fast, so I wouldn't be surprised if I misinterpret
Blueprints.
my first impression on some of these games. Haven't had a single drop frame. I occasionally see the buffer goes a little bit into the yellow, but yeah, I'm not seeing any hang-ups on the networking or the gameplay. I'm not seeing a drop frames.
fury of my curse. The uncharted desert awaits. What do we have here?
Here we have a game on Steam called Scary Hotel, which just looks like an asset flip horror game of no interest. English not supported. $3 even, no discount. Chinese only. Let's see. Gematsu has the Shin Megami Tensei 5 website update reportedly leaks in November 11th release date. At this point, we've heard so much about Shin Megami Tensei that I'm a little tired of hearing about it. Just a lot of talk. Game of Sutra says anything can be a game, the intriguing view within chasing light, which of course that's an opinion. Not anything can be a game. Lots of things can be games. But I think it is unfair and inaccurate to try and have somebody like Netflix come out and say all of our Netflix shows are actually video games too, because we've put in this interactive element where you can press a button at a specific point and you'll get more points. Like, that's not really a high enough quality of interaction to deserve the title of game. But yeah, I think that deserves the title of annoyance. Gematsu has Shinran Nini Ninja Tyson Neptune Sojo Taichi no Kyuin Nip Nap Ninja TV #1 video. This is, I believe, the Senran Kagura and crossover game with Neptunia. And yeah, this is like a 41-second announcements of information from the RPG elements. At a certain level, if the Neptunia games get good enough, then they basically are the same as a cheaper version of Dragon Quest. So if for the people out there that really, really like Dragon Quest games, they might be very interested in doing Sinrin games. Seems like it's about the same kind of enemies, slimes and such. Story is probably not the same though. I would assume that the story in a Dragon Quest game is way better. Here we have a game on Steam, Sniper Ghost Warrior Contracts 2. So many sniper games. I'm not certain if they are in the same universe as other sniper games. It's rated M, English full audio, bunch of other languages, $39.99. Of course, that's going to go on the fall list, but I would like to see if CI Games is the maker of the other sniper. Sniper Contracts would totally make sense, but the other sniper games, I don't know why some of these are still on my wish list. Like, I'd only really want to get these games if they were super cheap, and only because they are point and click adventure games. Sniper Ghost Warrior 3 was mixed from 2017. Yeah, this is from 2014. It's mostly negative. Sniper Ghost Warrior 1 is mixed. So, yeah, this isn't all of the sniper games. There is another company obviously making sniper games, but their selection is not particularly good. I talked about that. Here we have Warhammer Combat Cards on Steam, which the idea of a collectible card game that would be free to play might be interesting, set in the Warhammer universe. Unfortunately, it's already mixed. Is that because I'd like to see kind of why? You have to wait to open packs you've earned with a timer. You run out of energy, so you can't play anymore. As a poor UI, simple deck building, basic gameplay when in matches. Someone lost on the very first game. They lost on one turn in one hit to a legendary card, and it's a mobile game. Yeah, although collectible card games basically have to be mobile games as much as they have as PC games. So I'm not going to really hold that against them too much. Let's see, we already talked about this. Like, Game of Sutra has the same article. Balin Wonderworld game director Yuji Naka departs the Square Enix. Apparently he was the Sonic the Hedgehog co-creator also, which doesn't really mean anything because Sega owns Sonic the Hedgehog, so unless he's going back to Sega to make new Sonic games, which may be a bad idea too, I would suspect he is probably going to retire for good or run off to the suicide forest. Not to make light of it, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the great shame of being laid off sends him into a deep depression, at the very least. Heck, the great shame of making a terrible video game might have already sent him into a deep depression. Here we have a game on Steam called Pathfinder's Mini Worlds, which seems like a very, very simplistic find a word game. Yeah, I don't think this works for anybody, unless this was for kids, and even then I don't think it really works. 69 cents, English only. If you told me there was like 1,000 puzzles here, maybe I would think about it, but 100 levels. Yeah, in English only. It does have a decent visual polish to it, but it's not doing enough. Here we have one called Worldland 2 on Steam, which seems to be more of a Tetris word spelling game. 69 cents, English only. I kind of would like to see more of these word games versus low effort games. Here we have one called Critters for Sale, which I feel like I had seen this if this was like on early access before. It definitely looks familiar as like a very weird looking, mostly text based game. It was on my following list. I guess it's now just come out of early access. English full audio. Still doesn't really have enough relevancy, even though it's 96% of the percent positive. Here we have something called Universe 9999999. It's garbage. It's a top-down space shooter by the looks of it, $3.99. Either that or it is a Game of Life simulator. It's probably a Game of Life simulator. The Godot engine has come out with a Gotham, well, it's the Godot engine's parent company, has the Gotham publishing program. So they're going to act as a publisher for Gotham.io, a website I've never even heard of before, as a premium game and on the Nintendo Switch, which is to say we are looking at the point where we will see more bad games ending up on the Switch. TechRaptor has an article here. X-Riot and DICE developers have formed Lava Games and announced A Faraway Realm. I guess it's a game called A Faraway Realm, which is a Mario-inspired hero shooter. Which, okay. That's just another example of a TechRaptor article that they didn't cover. Destructoid didn't cover. Hasbro has lost the Monopoly trademark battle in the European Union. A continuation of a legal battle between Hasbro and Croatian board game seller Kreativni Dojadija. So, yeah, seems to me it seems to me that according to this, monopoly in the EU as a word and trademark has been invalidated, which is a good day for the bringing down of trademarks that don't make any sense in modern time. The word monopoly is far too generic to be a trademark, even in a board game. At this point, it has become a Kleenex. Well, it's kind of a Kleenex type phrase. Frankly, a lot of companies such as Kleenex and Hasbro are wasting tons of money to protect a trademark for very little reason. It's not like Hasbro can't outsell in the EU games named Monopoly. And they still own the copyright for all the artwork and all the characters in a standard Monopoly game, or they've licensed characters to make spin-off Monopoly games. But yeah, I doubt this. I doubt this will lead to the U.S. saying that Monopoly is no longer trademarked in the U.S. See, the European Union says that Hasbro acted in bad faith, and this decision has now been upheld. They refiled for the trademark without fulfilling all the necessary requirements. U.S. law firm Gottlob, Rackman, and Reisman wrote about the extensive history of Monopoly trademark. For example, there was a time in the early 1980s when the trademark was declared invalid in the United States. This was then rectified with an amendment to the Lanham Trademark Act and a subsequent compromise which restored the trademark and license by competing anti-monopoly trademark to its creator, giving ownership to Parker Brothers, which is now owned by Hasbro. So, yeah, the U.S. government basically passed a law that helped them, maybe intentionally or maybe not. And I would say in the United States, like, you have all kinds of custom monopolies for sports teams and cities and states. Maybe all of those are officially legally licensed from Hasbro, but they probably shouldn't at this point. And the general concept of the game of Monopoly should be not trademarkable or open source or public domain. It should be the right phrase. Yeah, public domain. For the general idea of a board game that goes around in a clockwise motion and you land on different spots and you buy those different spots. Like that concept should probably be fairly open, whereas Hasbro could still own the copyright and rights to the Monopoly Man and the art in their specific versions of their game. TechRaptor has a more in-depth article about Steam launching the developer do-it-yourself collaborative Steam bundles, which, okay. Of course, here we have TechRaptor putting their spin on it, where it's a political bundle, and then a racial justice bundle that they're linking to, and then a queer developers bundle and a Palestine aid bundle, which, yeah, this is the news editor Don Parsons putting out this article. The real question here, though, is can you make these bundles so that they give to a charity? And I think the answer is probably no. I bet these bundles do not change the percentage of anything at all. I bet Valve still gets a 30% cut, and then whatever percentage of that bundle it goes to whatever developer. I bet there's no way to do side deals or anything else. Here we have a game on Steam called Escape from Ruby Castle, which looks like a low polygon escape the room game for $8.49. And here is the list. I'll just show it. I'm up to 40 as far as going down a list on FeedSpot of games. A lot of these video game sites, they'll post like once a month, or they're so thematically one direction that I wouldn't really want to follow them. Like, I don't want to know about an MMORPG news in 8 posts a day. But yeah, I'm just going to go down this list, and anything that looks even slightly good, I'm going to check out. And if I can't find something that works for me, I'm going to work my way down. That's about the only thing I can do. There's really no accounting for taste or quality otherwise. Here we have a game on Steam called Draco Space X. But yeah, I would like to definitely improve upon find a better news source. Maybe replace 2 or 3 of them. This game is $3.99 English, Spanish, Latin America. Nothing interesting there. It's just a shoot 'em up game. Here we have a game called Artifacing, which looks like it's a match 3 game for $1.59 English only. Here we have a game called 32 Herd Mod, which looks like nothing, for $3.24 English only. Here we have a game called Freedom, which is yet another example of just flying around as a bird. This one says you hunt and kill and fly to survive, which there is something to that idea, I suppose, where you would actually swoop down and grab a rabbit and try and eat it, but I think that'd be fairly gory as a game. 89 cents English only. I bet this is very simplistic. I honestly think at this point it seems like there is a just default asset of a demo of flying around as a bird, and people are just asset flipping that, because we've seen far too many games where you play as a bird flying around or a hawk flying around. Here we have a game on Steam called Fimble Winter VR, which seems like you mostly spend your time chopping down trees, with an occasional encounter with a werewolf or wolf or something. This is VR for $3.59, which is way too expensive, so I'm gonna say no to that. Here we have a game called Death Rattle Hell Unleashed, which looks like it's a crossbow, 2-handed shooter game, first-person shooter. This is probably nothing, but it's got enough variety that I might give it a chance. $13.59 English full audio. We'll stick it on the follow list. See what people have to say about it. And then we have 80s Volleyball, which looks like just an NES volleyball clone, or pixel graphics of a NES volleyball game. Whoa. Is this the right number of people on a volleyball team? I thought it was 4 that you would play, not 6. It seems like a lot of people on the volleyball court. $3.99. I can't imagine that this would be particularly interesting. I'm questioning really if volleyball could be interesting as a video game anyways. Here we have a game that's all in Asian letters and looks just like a Chinese mobile game, just full of text. Free to play, in-app purchases, MMO, Chinese only. Here we have a game called Alpha Dia Genesis 2, which looks like an RPG Maker game of no quality, although oddly jumps between 2 art styles here. You have a flat top-down art style, and then you have more of a PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2 art style. That seems very inconsistent. $13.49 English and Japanese. The only thing that would make sense is if this was 2 games, or if this was a remaster of an old game. But if it was a remaster of an old game, I don't recognize it, nor have I seen anybody talk about it. Here we have a game, Arbor Man in Another World, which just looks like an asset flip game. Maze adventure game. That's what it's described as. Free English and then subtitles for Japanese and Chinese. That doesn't look quality. Next we have a game on Steam called Cake Invaders, which looks like it's a shoot 'em up game, for I guess lack of a better term. $3.99. They're comparing it to Dead Space and Dead Space 2. English, Japanese, and Chinese. Yeah, I don't think that's a accurate comparison. See, next we have a game on Steam called the Kotuna Sisters and the Legend of the Lysant Island, which looks hand-drawn. I suspect this might not support English. Yeah. $14.44 Japanese only. Probably wouldn't want to have played it anyways. The flat 2D characters in a 3D environment in an RPG may have worked, but I guess I'll never know. Yeah, we have one called Boris Russian Bear, which is almost certainly just a joke game. Although, if anything, this is probably the most comedic joke game I've seen around this concept. 79 cents, English only. But yeah, still a joke game, still not really worth playing. Trying to make some room on my tab bar before we end today. Here we have a game on Steam called Beast Crimes, which looks like a visual novel of anthropomorphic humanoid animals and a murder mystery visual novel. Early access, free to play, English only. I mean, it's weird enough I'm going to put it on the fall list, but I'm almost certainly would never play it. Then we've got one here called Tree Strike, where it seems like you're beating up trees for little reason. That seems to be about all that's going on. $2.54, English only. Alright, well, then that brings me, I think, close enough to call it a day. So, we'll go through my Twitter feed here and show off, let's see if there's any new news or not. Something I am considering doing with whenever I get around to updating OBS to version 27 is that it now has the opportunity for more transitions. So I think I may try to have a bit of a fancier transition than a simple fade when I go to the web peak or not. Which that'll make it look a little cooler. It probably won't change much. A good transition is usually very quick anyways and easily forgettable. So I wouldn't be surprised if I went through several of them, tried them out, and decided to just stick with the fade. And yeah, in the last 3 hours, there probably hasn't been that much new news because I started very late, and starting very late and ending very late is definitely going to it's not going to have any real new news. There's Destructoid has a updated headline for the article we kind of had already seen. Deep Silver says there will be no Dead Island 2, Time Splitters, or Saint Row announcements at E3. So basically 3 games not talked about that they're specifically saying they're not showing at E3. Yeah, this is getting very easy to go down these feeds when most of these people haven't posted in 7 hours or longer. That is something, I guess, that is the benefit of accidentally streaming late, is that I wouldn't really need to bother with setting things up. So yeah, the only new article is this Destructed article. Arishi Castle of Sin looks like it wants to be Tenchu of PSVR. Which, guess we could see what this trailer looks like. It's a PlayStation VR game. There's a dog. There's a sword. They're sneaking around. They're killing people. There might be an experience here. Certainly, if this game came out and it was even decent, it would replace a lot of the VR games I have on my fall list, where you are shooting arrows in just one place and basically playing a tower defense game. So yeah, I'm not super surprised there. That would be very visually interesting. Speaking of visually interesting, we'll wrap up on an adult lewd looking game. Here we have Explorers of the Abyss, which clearly this is just an RPG game, but we should say lots of cleavage being shown, really big boobs. And once again, Steam is letting this on their site, seemingly not having any problem with it. So I think we are past that point of fear of censorship. $17.99, or massive amounts of censorship, at least Japanese only. Of course, that's not a game that I think really would make it to the fall list. Alright, well, we'll leave it there, and we'll leave the rest of the games to talk about on Monday. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wish list. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.